Welcome back to the show, folks. This is the wrap-up, your daily dose of pop culture and movie news hosted by me, Mr. H Reviews. On today's show, we'll be taking a look at X-Men versus the Fantastic Four. This is a movie which was planned and even written by 20th Century Fox. There's some story details that have been released about that, so we'll be touching on that. We'll also be taking a look at Black Adam, the Shazam spin-off movie that has long been confirmed, but it's moving ahead a little bit more now. So we'll take a look at that, and then we will finish. The last story of the day is actually Sigourney Weaver seemingly confirming that the original cast will be back for Ghostbusters 3. Shock horror, because again, no one thought this was going to happen. And then we'll have some time for some viewer questions, hopefully. So, straight from the top, if you want to skip ahead, please do. The timestamps will be down below in the description box, and then also linked below in a pinned comment. Straight from the top, guys, if you are watching this show and you are a returning subscriber, you may notice that I've been doing little highlight videos during the day. I'm taking key topics from this big podcast and making them into individual videos, because some people like to consume their media in smaller bite-sized chunks. So I hope you appreciate why I'm doing that, and hopefully you can now choose between this, the longer form content, or the very short, smaller, individual shows. But anyway, guys, straight from the top as well, hey, if you're new here, hit subscribe. You can stay up to date on this, the daily dose of pop culture and movie news, the wrap-up. So, let's just jump straight into it. Now, this is a report courtesy of comicbookmovie.com. Now, they actually cite the Hollywood Reporter for this, and I've tried to track it down, but I actually can't find it. So, unfortunately, I can't find the original article that this is from. Now, it was the Hollywood Reporter that had originally dropped this news that there was going to be a planned X-Men versus Fantastic Four crossover movie. And then since then, they've then got more information about it. But again, like I say, I can't find the original article that this particular article is citing. So it states, obviously, earlier this month, X-Men First Class screenwriter Zack Stentz revealed that at the beginning of the decade, 20th Century Fox almost greenlit a massive crossover movie that would have seen the X-Men, Fantastic Four, Daredevil, and even Deadpool all share the screen under the direction of the Bourne filmmaker Paul Greengrass. Which I did a report on this, and I said that actually, in fairness, Paul Greengrass would have been a great director. He does visceral action very, very well. So it was a massive surprise, obviously, but also a bit of a shame, because Paul Greengrass is actually a good director. Now, it says, obviously, however, for reasons unknown, Fox opted to give their X-Men franchise a soft reboot once First Class was a success, and the rest is obviously history. Now, it states, Stentz decided not to divulge any plot details, but the Hollywood Reporter has now managed to unearth the never-before-told story. And again, if I click this link to head through to the Hollywood Reporter, and I've got some other articles from the Hollywood Reporter here anyway, I can't find anything. There is nothing anywhere. So, take this with a pinch of salt. I may just not be able to find it, but I've tried. I tried for a good half an hour, so that's that's all by the by, I guess. But it states, and not only does it sound incredibly ambitious, it could have ultimately gone down as one of the best superhero movies ever made in a pre-Avengers world. I actually would have agreed to a certain degree, only with a caveat that it is a pre-Avengers world. That's something which is very, very important to note. When judging this as a good movie and as a kind of an ambitious, great superhero crossover. So it states, according to their sources, Fox had plans to build toward a massive crossover film that would have seen the X-Men square off against the Fantastic Four. So it was those two key players, two key teams here. So as First Class writers Ashley Edward Miller and Zack Stentz were enlisted to pen the script, which would have apparently seen Johnny Storm go nova while trying to apprehend the villain Molecule Man. So obviously just would have went supernova, basically. And now, interestingly enough, this plays very much like Civil War and elements that have been in Marvel movies. But again, it's important to note, this would have been before that, to a large degree. So, it states this would have resulted in him accidentally blowing a hole in Manhattan, and in response to the carnage, the government is forced to introduce the Superhero Registration Act. Again, Marvel tropes, things that we've already seen played out. But this would have been somewhat ahead of its time. So it states that the heroes from both teams would be split on opposing sides, and one of the key fights was set to feature Wolverine, Hugh Jackman, of course, taking on Mr. Fantastic. Now, there's no one listed for these particular roles, because obviously I don't think I'm fairly certain that Fantastic Four wasn't out at this point in time, so, you know, again, your guess is as good as mine who would have played these roles. Hopefully not, you know, Michael Chiklis thing, that would have been hilarious. But it states a battle that would end up with Reed Richards, Mr. Fantastic, pinning Wolverine down, extending his hands until they are one molecule wide, and then using them as scissors to cut off Logan's arms. Unbelievable. Whether this would have been R-rated or not, who knows? But sounds great for an action set piece anyway. After a series of equally intense events, the heroes... This part I don't really get. The heroes eventually just make peace with one another. And the post-credit scene would have set up the next film with the tease of a Super Skrull invasion. Because, of course, Fox are able to use the Skrulls. And it's something which they probably should have done for the latest X-Men Dark Phoenix. Now, it states, obviously, that Bourne director Paul Greengrass had been in talks to direct, but due to another commitment, the two sides were never able to come to a formal agreement. So it was in discussion stages. Then, following the success of Matthew Vaughn's X-Men First Class, the studio put the uber-ambitious crossover project on the back burner and decided to stay on their current trajectory, moving toward X-Men Days of Future Past instead. The script was completed. It was completed. There were pitches made. They were talking to directors. I think, and again, it's really important to note, pre-Avengers World, I think this would have been quite good. I genuinely think this would have been quite good. But I hand it on over to you. What do you think? Could this have been good? Would this have been good? Let me know down below in the comments section. Now, let's shuffle on. We are taking a look at Shazam spin-off Black Adam. Now, the director, Jean Collet-Serra, butchered that name, will tackle the DC film starring Dwayne Johnson. So there were talks about this yesterday. There were some rumors that this was happening, but nothing was confirmed. Now, interestingly enough, this director is very familiar with working with Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, because he just recently wrapped shooting on Disney's Jungle Cruise. So, you know, it's a director which obviously Dwayne, The Rock, and also his agents, the people who are working with him, his producers and things like that, because it's a close-knit team currently, they clearly favour this director. They clearly like this director, and they clearly like how they're getting performances out of The Rock. So it's interesting. Now, it states that Beau Flynn of Flynn Picture Co. will produce with Johnson, Danny Garcia, and Hiram Garcia and $7 Productions. So it's actually, Dwayne is on board as a producer for this film. It's his production company, which is on board for all of this. So it says Black Adam is considered the arch nemesis of Shazam. We don't know how that's going to play out, actually, because there were some rumors that this would not be a villain story, but I mean, Black Adam is a villain. So it's very, very interesting. But it says, dating all the way back to the 1940s when the hero was called Captain Marvel. He was a semi-immortal Egyptian prince who became corrupted by the magical powers imbued to him by a wizard, which is what we saw in Shazam. Arguably a good film, actually. So, I mean, look, he doesn't have a great history. I mean, Collet-Serra made his directing in horror movies to start, so a remake of The House of Wax and Orphan. You know, whether that is what you consider good or bad, who knows? But then he went on to, and this is probably where people will not like this director, he then went on to do a bunch of old man action hero movies. Liam Neeson, The Commuter, Run All Night, Non-Stop, and Unknown. So he's not particularly great in terms of his history, but clearly $7 Productions and The Rock have seen something in this director. Clearly he is working very well with The Rock and the production company as well. And not only that, he's just been given the keys to a Disney property. So he must be somewhat proficient in his trade. But those other movies, again, were bad. So historically, it's not particularly great. But what do you guys think about this? Now, the fact that it's got its director, there is a chance that this will be moving forward. So what do you think? Let me know down below in the comment section. And again, let me know your thoughts on any of these topics down below in the comment section. Now, let's shuffle on to Parade.com. Now, this is just a big interview piece with Sigourney Weaver. Not overly anything interesting here. I mean, there's some comments made about Avatar and beyond and Alien and things like that. But in terms of the real key bits here, which is interesting, is that she starts to talk about Ghostbusters. So, Ghostbusters 3 is supposed to be a sequel to Ghostbusters 2, but up until this point in time, we hadn't had confirmation that any of the original cast were going to be returning. We had some rumours that they were. We had comments from them saying that they were on board, they want to do it, but in fact they hadn't received the call. So this is probably the first confirmation that things are happening with this. She goes on to say that in terms of here, so she's also set to reunite with Bill Murray and Dan Aykroyd in the new Ghostbusters due July 2020. It's going to be crazy working with the guys again, she says. But of course she won't reveal any details except to confirm that she is reprising her role. So she's back on board. This is a very almost by proxy confirmation that it's happening now. This is surprising because, again, we hadn't had any confirmation of this. You would have thought that this would have come from, a bigger site, a more industry-specific website rather than Parade.com. But what do you think? I mean, she's apparently coming back with the guys, Bill Murray and Dan Aykroyd. So what do you guys think about this? Let me know. Do you think this is good? Do you think this is bad? There's been a lot of bad blood with respect to this movie moving forwards, because of course it comes on the heels of 2016's Fembusters, and a lot of people didn't like that movie for many reasons. I'm not going to get into it here, but this film really does need to deliver, because not only does it need to deliver on what fans want, but it also needs to deliver on what it's trying to do, which is setting up and passing the torch to a new generation. Which I guess that's the era that we're living in now. We're not living in the era of reboots. We're living in the era of soft reboots, continuations, passing the torch. Non-original franchises basically just continuing with newer people. Terminator Dark Fate is doing the same. Getting the old guard back, passing the torch to a new guard, and thus handing the keys to the fandom over to new people. Same with this Ghostbusters movie. So it has to deliver. I don't know whether it will. But I think they're going to step in the right direction by at least having the original cast back on board. But I hand it on over to you. What do you think? Let me know down below in the comment section. Right now, we've got some time for some great viewer questions. If you want to submit your question to me, Mr. H Reviews, you can over on Gmail, mrhreviews@gmail.com, and then we'll get time to answer them at the end of this daily show. So let's dip into that mailbag and see what we've got today. Right, so today we've got one from Kane. Thank you so much for emailing in, dude. He says, "Hi, Mr. H. Is there a film that you absolutely adore that has done miserably at the cinema, box office, the theatres, that you would love to get a sequel? My one would be Blade Runner 2049, but I don't think it will ever get a sequel to it." I would agree. I mean, there's seldom do movies, that are kind of that flop, that generally speaking are really good. But one of those, notably in the last few years, was Blade Runner 2049. It was a fantastic film. It was beautifully crafted together. I think, in theory, that was a bit of a tester to movie studios to see whether these cult classics that have a huge following that were never particularly great when they came out in terms of their box office numbers, I think it was a bit of a tester to see whether they could succeed in bringing an old property back like that. It's a bit different to say the likes of Terminator Dark Fate, because they've had so many movies. I wouldn't say that really counts. This in particular was one movie back in the day, and then they've revisited it. But I thought it was beautifully put together. I thought it was a really good movie. And it's one which I would love to see a sequel to. And I'd love Denis to come back on board, because I thought he was fantastic. I thought he was really good. And very Ridley Scott-esque, but built on it. I think he had similar cinematography to Ridley Scott and really crafted an excellent world. And I'd love to see Dave Bautista. I'd like a spin-off of Dave Bautista, his character in that, because I thought he was really, really good. So yeah, in fact, I would agree with you. Bit of a cop-out, but I would agree with you. What do you guys think? What is a movie which flopped at the box office that you would love to see a sequel to that you don't think we ever will? Let me know down below in the comments section. So moving on, got a question from Eric. New subscriber here. Thank you so much. I got pulled in by your Hellraiser and Alien videos. I love those playlists. They are some of my favourite. Two of my favourite franchises. Anyway, I've since watched quite a bit of your content and really enjoyed it. Again, thank you. He says, so thank you. Pleasure's all mine. Thank you. I was curious what you thought of Clive Barker's writing, if you've read any. Specifically how it's changed over the years. His first books were so incredibly imaginative and just ridiculous in their scope. There's a reason his very first books of blood were lauded. Anyway, I've noticed the quality of his writing has taken a very downward trend over time, and I was curious if you noticed and what you thought the reason was, or do you think it's simply old age? Thanks. Great question. Great question. I think undeniably his writing has declined. And I got posed this question in a wrap-up episode probably last week now, talking about the Scarlet Gospels and whether the Hellraiser remake, which is happening, a theatrical remake of Hellraiser is happening, should take inspiration from the Scarlet Gospels. And I said absolutely not, because in that book you can see you can read, it's there, Clive Barker's disdain for the world he created. And not so much for the world that it is the world that he created, because he wrote and directed the first Hellraiser movie. It was his vision. So it's a very clear disdain and almost near contempt that he holds for the world that he had established and created. I do think it's been on a downward spiral, and I'm not going to just sit here and rip on Clive Barker. It's not what I'm here to do. But undoubtedly, I think anyone that has read his earlier works versus his later works will agree with me. And if you don't, that's fine. But I would think that the majority would. I think undoubtedly it's gone downhill. The reason for that, who knows? I mean, the man has numerous health concerns, so it could be health issues. It could be old age. I mean, who knows? It's one of those things that your guess is as good as mine. I would probably say it's weariness from the industry. The movie world has taken its toll on him. Trying to get things off the ground, they're not. I think just potentially his lack of success to a degree. And I know people will say, what do you mean lack of success? It is a lack of success. I mean, he was praised as the next Stephen King. People thought that Clive Barker was absolutely going to just smash it, and then he just went off into obscurity. So I think it's potentially old age, a little bit of a disdain for the industry, his own creations, and things like that. But I'll hand it on over to you. What do you think? Do you think it's just old age, or do you think it is to do with any other external factors? Everyone, I beg for your answers down below. I'd genuinely be keen to hear this, because I know we've got some Hellraiser fans here for sure, so I'd love to know your thoughts. Guys, if you do want your questions answered here on this daily show, please do email them to me, mrstagereviews@gmail.com, using the subject line, The Wrap Up. It's really, really important, and hopefully we'll have time for your questions. Like I said at the start of this show, I am doing highlights to this. I don't expect everyone to watch the highlights, but it's more if you want to watch the entire show, you can. You have it on in the background, because they're 20-minute long episodes. And then if not, and you just want to consume very key smaller pieces of news, then those videos will be there as well. I recently spoke with YouTube about the notification system and how my channel is working, basically. So they noted very specifically that although notifications are going through to people, the click-through rate is very, very low. The way people are consuming my content is through suggested videos. So it's really important that I produce these mini highlights, really, because it means that you guys, my subscribers, will actually have a higher chance of seeing the videos. Because again, they even confirmed that the subscription box is algorithmic. So not all of my videos will turn up in your subscription box. So hopefully that explains why I'm doing what I'm doing. And I hope you don't just get flooded with these videos and go, sod this guy, I'm unsubscribing. Because it's not the aim. The aim is to actually just get you the content, because YouTube told me that you're not getting it, basically. So I know it's all very, very strange, but it is what it is. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. As always, here on the Wrap Up, the daily dose of pop culture and movie news. Thank you so much. I've been Mr. H. Take care.